It's fair to say that the last 18 months have been like nothing else any of us have ever experienced, and nobody has escaped the many and varied impacts of life during a pandemic. But the truth is that we haven't all experienced it in the same way. Those who were most vulnerable prior to COVID have suffered disproportionate impacts from the pandemic, and that includes people who are experiencing violence in their homes and relationships. The pandemic, including the varying levels of community shutdown, working from home more than in the office, and economic challenges have served to increase risk for domestic abuse survivors while simultaneously reducing their access to support systems. As many of us retreated to our homes for safety from the virus, what this meant for abuse survivors is that they were now stuck 24/7 in that one place that is most dangerous for them. And while the violence was increasing in their home, many survivors had their abusive partners around all of the time now, making it that much more difficult to reach out for help and support. But when they were able to reach out to places like Emerge, the question was whether we would still be there on the other end of that phone. Many businesses and community resources were closing, reducing services, or limiting hours, and we at Emerged understood that simply was not an option for us, because when we're talking about people at risk of being killed by their intimate partner, it puts a whole new meaning on the term essential worker. But the staff at Emerge are people too, and they had their own concerns and fears about their health and well-being and that of their families. And while the team of staff at Emerge is selfless to a fault, it doesn't mean that it was easy to navigate their own personal worries in the face of this unprecedented public health crisis, while still being committed to zero disruption in services for abuse survivors who we all know were counting on us. So on a dime, the team set about the task of converting some of our in-person services to be delivered remotely and striving to create the COVID safety that comes from virtual services while not giving in to the loss of personal connection that inherently comes with having a screen between you and a person who's sharing some of their most intimate and vulnerable experiences in life. We had to figure out how to set up home office environments that work with such delicate and confidential conversations. And for those who remained on site throughout, including our emergency shelter team, our facilities and operations staff, and others, it was about scrambling to ensure that services and operations could continue as seamlessly as possible for our program participants while making sure that everyone's safety was considered. None of this was easy, but we have a dynamic, dedicated team of compassionate, caring people, and they would have it no other way. And they pulled it off with no interruption in services. It's a testament to the character and fortitude of those who work at Emerge, and for me, it's what true sacrifice and generosity of spirit looks like. It's what happens when you center people's humanity. It is Emerge, and I am immeasurably humbled and honored to work with such beautiful human beings.
You know, we've heard a lot about teachers and healthcare heroes throughout the pandemic, and rightfully so. What we haven't heard as much about are those working in human services nonprofits and the tremendous amount of selflessness that they have shown throughout this pandemic, like our staff at Emerge. We're very collaborative at Emerge, which means that us admin staff believe strongly that our main purpose is to provide support to those delivering services, which ultimately centers our participants in everything we do. Admin staff had to pivot quickly to mitigate risk and think through processes we never would have dreamed of in our lifetimes. At the same time, Emerge staff were also asked to work on understanding the intersections of race by attending trainings and collective conversations, all of which were virtual. We knew this was a lot to address at once, but we also knew the need was urgent and couldn't be put off until after the pandemic. Because Black and Brown people are dying now, and Indigenous women are missing now. And in our line of work, centering the experiences of people of color is absolutely paramount to providing truly supportive, empathetic domestic abuse services. What we have witnessed during the pandemic has been truly extraordinary in all kinds of ways: inspirational, horrific, exhausting, hopeful. And despite how difficult it has been, I can honestly say that I am truly grateful to work alongside my Emerge colleagues to collectively do this work every day.
When you think about the last 18 months, I think about all that we experienced individually and collectively. how we lived through a global pandemic that turned our worlds upside down. We saw everyday items that some of us had taken for granted go out of stock for weeks, if not months. We witnessed our loved ones get sick and have to go through that pain alone while not being able to be near them. We grieved and mourned our friends and family members without being able to gather and celebrate their lives. And then came the murders of Breonna Taylor and George Floyd. Their deaths sparked an awakening across the country, which included rallies and protests, the removal of Confederate statues. It led folks that wanted to be in allyship to look within themselves and learn about the ways that systemic racism shows up and affects people of color, the way that whiteness is centered in a lot of the things that we experience and see and live through. And yet we continue to see the increased violence against Black, Latinx, and Asian American communities that were rooted in racism, homophobia, transphobia, and xenophobia. And so when I think about survivors of domestic abuse, I think about how they lived through this turbulence while working hard to remain safe in both their homes and from the COVID-19 virus. And so when I look back at the past year, I see how we were all exposed to what happens when we do not act and address the issues in our community. I learned that those of us with privilege have to actively be an ally and to work to dismantle the systems in which we benefit. None of us can do all it takes to end domestic violence or to create an anti-racist community alone. It takes all of us as a community of people in solidarity to lean in and labor together to show up for folks in our spaces that have historically been ignored and stigmatized, but to also to continue to condemn violence, racism, and hate when we see it.
Hi, my name is Kristina Machholz, and I'm the development coordinator. My position focuses mostly on donor relations and donations. I'm the one you call when you have a question about a donation or you're asking how to give or what our agency needs. I remember getting phone calls, not only from community members asking how they can help, whether it be, hey, I have a sewing machine and I can crank out 20 to 30 masks. When do you need it by? But I also had conversations with people who just needed to connect. And I think that connection is so important. And just hearing from our donors wanting to reach out and do something good and needing to do something good was humbling. I'm truly grateful to be able to see that and how we as humans need to reach out and make people feel welcomed and loved. And that's the work we're all trying to do here.
Hello, my name is Lauryn Olivia Easter, and I am a survivor of domestic abuse and also a Purple Ribbon volunteer with Emerge. I started volunteering with Emerge because I can say with 100% confidence that I would not be where I am without the care and support of my advocate. And I wanted to help other survivors just like my advocate helped me. Though when the pandemic hit, I remember the volunteer efforts had to cease until it was safe for us to come back and provide support. And I remember checking in with staff members to make sure they were okay and doing well, and just letting them know that if there was anything I could do to provide support, even if it was from home, to just reach out. I remember arriving at Voices Against Violence, all masked up, and taking my temp before entering, and I was just ready to do whatever I could to help support not only survivors, but this incredible team that you could tell were working so much to provide services as much as possible. I remember seeing the exhaustion and feeling it in the room, but the passion and dedication of Emerge and all of its staff never ceased, and it never left. If anything, their dedication and commitment to survivors was amplified because they knew that their services were needed more than ever. And Emerge continues to inspire me with the work they do day in and day out. I really just want to say thank you to all of you at Emerge for helping us survivors in more ways than we ever thought were possible.
My name is L'Oreal Dacoa, and I am the Director of Systems Integration, as well as oversee the Purple Ribbon Volunteer Program here at Emerge. Volunteers are an essential part of our team. They support our staff extremely. There was a point in time at the start of the pandemic where our entire emergency services team had a possible exposure to COVID-19. They had to be quarantined. At that point in time, we reached out to our volunteers who were able to come out and help us continue to deliver services. They help us deliver food, toiletry items, and any kind of special needs that our participants were needing in the moment. The postponement and cancellation of our daily volunteer activities as well as our special events took a toll on the number of volunteers we had during the pandemic. It has really driven home the importance of volunteers and how crucial they are to the teams here at Emerge. I would like to take this opportunity to thank all of our volunteers that have been with us in the past, during the pandemic, and that are slowly returning to services. We appreciate all the time, effort, and love that you give to everyone here at Emerge, especially our participants. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Judy, and I'm a member of the board at Emerge. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank our staff and our administration for their commitment and persistence during the last 2 years in providing as many services as possible to the survivors that we serve. This has been an unprecedented time, and all of us have had difficulties, but the efforts of the staff have been phenomenal, and they are much appreciated. In addition, Emerge's stance as an anti-racist organization and its effort to continue to improve itself in that fashion are admirable, to say the least, and really something I want to be a part of. Again, thank you to everybody involved with Emerge.